dosage calculations. Let's do a quick review over some missed problems on the midterm exam. So one of the first ones was you were given an order, and this specific order says 28 milligrams by mouth BID, which means twice per day for 5 days. So you were given a drug label, like you went to a pharmacy and you got a bottle, and on one of them it said 10 milligrams, and it said it had I don't know, 100 tablets in it. So let's talk about it right quick. And let me erase this right. Let me get my notation a little cleaner. Anyways, our dosage strength, that's 2 parts. When I look at the supply, I notice my dosage strength is going to be 10 milligrams per tablet, per 1 tablet. This here is my amount, right? That's the total amount in that bottle. However, my dosage strength is going to be my supply, which is 10 milligrams per tablet. I'm going to take my order here. And if you use the formula method, it's desired over a half times quantity. And let's break down what each part is. Desired is my order, the 28 milligrams. The half is going to be my strength of my supply times my quantity, which is my tab from my supply, my 1 tablet. Now, when I divide this out, I know that I get 2.8 tabs. If you spell it out, then you can write tablets with an S on the end because it's greater than 1. But since I only abbreviated, I did not put an S and no decimal. Okay, so when you go back to this order here, we need to determine if it's a scored tablet or unscored. If it's unscored, we're going to say 2 tabs is what you're going to administer, okay? But if it is scored, then that means we can break it into half. And so let me just make a note here. Unscored, the answer would be 2 tabs. If it's scored, then we know that they're going to take 2.5 tabs per dose. Now, if I ask you how many dosage in 5 days, well, we're going to take our answer. Let's do the scored. We're going to take that 2.5 tab. We're going to multiply it by BID, which is twice a day, times the 5 days. So now I got 2.5 times 2 times 5, which is 25 tabs in 5 days. And that would be the correct notation. Let's look at the next missed one, most commonly missed. We have a parental intake going on here. If you read this, you notice that it says during the shift, and you're given the shift right here, 0700 to 1500, which is 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. They're doing an IV of 1,000 milliliters, normal, right? 0.9% sodium chloride. It says they started this at 0500. Well, at 0700 is when your shift started. So someone's already calculated from 0500 to 700. However, we do need to calculate from 0700 to 3 p.m. So let's look. At 0500, it says that we infused 80 milliliters per hour. It said the nurse administered 1 gram in 100 milliliters of Dextro 5 water, IV piggyback every 8 hours, starting 0900. Okay, so that's different. It's a piggyback. It's something getting added during the infusion. So we're going to come back to this one. Let's do this infusion flow rate right quick. The last sentence says around 1200, the doctor decreased the flow rate to 75 milliliters. All right, so we got enough information. The shift started at 0700. And we know that at 1200, the flow rate changed. So from 0700 to 1200, we got 80 milliliters per hour. And then we need to calculate how many hours that is. So we got 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. So that's 5 hours, right? So we're going to multiply that by 5 hours. So that should give us 400 milliliters. All right. Now from 1200 till our shift ends, because someone else is going to take care of it outside that shift, 1200 to 1500, they said it decreased to 75 milliliters per hour. And so 12 to 13, 13 to 14, 14 to 15, that's 3 hours. So now we have 75 times 3. And if you need to do your math on the side, remember you can only use a simple calculator that has multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and square root only. So carry that. 225. All right, so now we know the intake for the infusion, right? I'm going to erase this here. And what I need to do is add it up. I'm going to take this 400 milliliters plus this 225 milliliters. That will give me the total infusion flow rate, but we still have an IV piggyback to add in. Okay, so we're almost done. Let's go back to that second sentence where it said the nurse administered an IV piggyback. It said every 8 hours they gave 100 milliliters and they started at 0900. So at 0900, they gave their first 100 milliliters. So I know to add that one on. But before I decide I'm going to add on another 100, I need to see if it reoccurs during that shift. This is every 8 hours. If it was every 4 hours, yeah, there's a possibility that it's going to happen again during the shift. However, it said every 8 hours, and so we can calculate it. So from 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, right? We can say at 0900 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 13. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 13 to 14. That's 5, 14 to 15. So no, it didn't happen again during this shift. So we're just going to add this one up. So that's a total of 725 milliliters. And that is going to be my answer. Let me scroll my page down a little bit so you can see my answer. So the total parental intake here is 725. So be sure and read, make sure whatever's going on during that window that you are recording, because someone else already took care of it outside that window. So now let's talk about Tom. So we have this scenario going on here, and it states that at 13:37 on a Sunday, Maggie noticed that the rash on her left leg was, she noticed it. It says around 9.3 hours later, Barney noticed that the rash was much worse. So first question was, how much later was it, or what time was it when Barney noticed, right, that it was much worse? So at 13:37, I need to add on 9.3 hours later. Well, in military 24-hour international clock time, the first 2 digits is hours. The last 2 digits is minutes. And in this decimal 0.93 hours, the number in front of the decimal we know is our whole number, and that's my hour. So I'm going to go ahead and list it. But this 0.3 hours, we need to figure out what it is in minutes. So my relationship between hours and minute, I know for every 1 hour, that's 60 minutes. So we're going to multiply 0.3 times 60, which is 18 minutes. Let's add this up. So what do we get? We get 15, carry the 1, it's 5, carry the 1 over here. Okay, so we got 2255 is our answer for when Barney noticed the rash was much worse. We can also write it in standard time if you're asked to, so we know that's 10:55 p.m. However, in this case here, it didn't ask you to do that. It did ask you, though, however, on the next step, it says Maggie went to the urgent care 2.8 hours later. So what time was it then? So I'm going to take this 22:55, and I got the 2.8. I know the 2 goes in front is my hours. So let's figure out what is the 0.8 hours in minutes. Again, we know for every 1 hour, it's 60 minutes. So now I got 8 times 60, which is what, 48 minutes. Okay, so we add on the 48 here. Now I got 5 plus 8 is 13, carry the 1, 10, carry the 1, 5, bring down the 2. However, there's only 24 hours in a day, so I'm going to subtract off the 24 off that 25, and it's going to give me a more accurate time frame. So 0103 is my answer, and if I write it in standard time, this would be my answer as well. Let's talk about recommendations. All right, so you're given a drug order, and you're giving information about the patient. In this case here, it's 65 pounds for that patient. First question said, what is the patient's weight in kilograms? So y'all are going to need to know the rounding rules. You have to know them. You're not going to get to use it on the test. You have no choice. It is part of the health program. And when you get in the nursing program, they're going to expect you to know it as well. So for every 1 kilogram, we know that it's approximately equal to 2.2 pounds. So that means I'm going to take this 65 pounds, divide it by 2.2. Okay. So I get 65 divided by 2.2. Well, that gives me 29.5454, and it repeats 5454. And whenever we're talking about a patient's weight going from pounds to kilograms, we round to the nearest tenths. So if you notice that this first digit behind the decimal is tenths, we look behind it to determine if the number behind it's going to cause it to go up 1 or not. So we ask ourselves, is this number behind it equal to or greater than 5? If your answer is yes, we'd add 1. If it's no, we just drop the decimals off. In this case, it's no. So 29.5 kilograms is our patient's weight. All right. Question 2 says, the minimum daily dosage for this child. So that means we need to go to the recommendations. We're going to look at what is recommended for this child. And we notice it said if the child is weighing less than 40 kilograms, we're going to abide by this recommendation, and this child does, so we're going to use it. We have a minimum of 18 to a maximum of 29 milligrams per kilogram per day. So for each kilogram, we're going to base this information on. It says it's in equally divided doses every 8 hours. All right. Sometimes the recommendations may say every 6 hours or every 4 hours. It may have multiple choices here. That's because the doctor has multiple options every 4 hours, every 6 hours. So make sure and review what the order is and what the recommendation is, and you may have to do a little bit more calculations. If you have issues with that, just reach out with me. So in question 2, I'm going to take my patient of 29.5 kilograms. I'm going to put them over 1. I'm going to multiply that to my minimum of 18 milligrams per kilogram per day. And I'm going to go through here and notice that my kilograms reduce. And that's what we wanted. So now we have 29.5 times 18 gives me a total of 531 milligrams per day. So that answers part 2. I want to erase this right here just so we have more. It won't be a mess to read. Okay, now let's go back to it. Now, part 3 says, well, how much will they take in a single dose based upon the minimum recommendation? So we're going to take that 531 milligrams per day. And I'm going to come up here and I notice it said equally divided doses every 8 hours. So let's talk about this right quick. We know there's a total of 24 hours in a day. Well, if we're doing this every 8 hours, we want to see how many times every 8 hours occurs in that 24 hours. And it's going to be per dose, per 1 dose. Let me write this a little bit neater. So, every 8 hours is 1 dose. All right, so the H is reduced. 8 divides 24 gives me 3 doses in a day, right? In 24 hours, they're going to take a total of 3 doses. So I'm going to write in 1 day, divide 3 doses. So that means I'm going to take that 531, divide it by 3, and I get 177 milligrams per dose. This is a minimum, okay? So we're talking about the minimum. Always good to label. Minimum recommendation. Okay, now let's figure out the maximum. So the maximum says that it's 29 milligrams per kilogram per day. So we got to take our patient of 29.5 kilograms over 1, multiply it by that 29 right here. 29 milligrams per kilogram per day. We're going to X out the kilograms because they reduce. And now I have, what, 29.5 times 29. That's going to give me 275.5. That was a nice clean decimal. Remember, know the rounding rules on this. I'm going to scroll down so I have more paper room. So, and let's label this. This is my maximum recommended. All right. So now I have 275.5 milligrams per day recommended for this patient. Let's figure out its single maximum dosage. So I'm going to take this 275.5 milligrams per day. I'm going to multiply it because it said every 8 hours. We already figured that part up at the top for this. So we're going to factor that in. In 1 day, they're going to take 3 doses. All right, so 275.5 divided by 3 gives me a yucky decimal, right? 3 repeating. So what you need to do is go to the rounding rules. It says that if your answer is going to be in milligrams, we're going to round to the nearest hundreds. So that is the second decimal place, and you look behind it. Well, if 3 is repeating, we know 3 is not larger than 5 or greater than 5. So it's just going to be 91.83 milligrams per dose. So this is my maximum per dose. Let's go back to the order, because the last question wants to know, is the order safe? Did the doctor recommend a safe dosage for this patient? And if we go up there and look, you notice that they said by mouth every 8 hours. They didn't say 275 milligrams by mouth all day. So watch for that, okay? But this says per order, right? Every 8 hours. So I'm going to make a note right here. 275 milligrams per dose is the order. Now we need to determine, is the order safe? All right. So in order to do that, I'm going to focus on the minimum and the maximum recommendations for this patient. Remember, if we was to determine what's safe for each one of us, we'd all have a different amount because we all have a different body weight. All right. So it says here that we have a minimum of 77 milligrams to a maximum of. So what we need to do is recheck our math because our minimum is larger than our maximum. So something doesn't look right. Let's check our math right quick, guys. So I said 531 divided by 3. It says 177. We have 275.5. Oh, okay. So if you caught this, good for you. Our answer here on the maximum daily dose here, we had 29.5 times 29. It actually gives us 855.5 milligrams. So there was a big typo. So that's another way to catch little errors if those numbers didn't look right. Now I'm going to divide that by 3. And that makes better sense. Still got to follow the rounding rules. And I came out with 200, and I rounded 285.17 milligrams per dose. And that's why I use these squiggly lines because they're not exact. 285.17. Let's do this. Let me highlight it right quick. Okay, that looks better. Makes better sense. So now, to determine if this is safe, the order has to fall between that. It can equal either the minimum or maximum, but it has to fall between. So basically what it's saying is my recommended minimum is less than or equal to my order, which is less than or equal to my recommended max. All right. So if we look at it, my recommended was 177. My order is 275, and my maximum was 285. If the order can fall between them, or it can equal the minimum or maximum, but if the order falls between them or equals them, then it's safe. Okay? Now, a special note right quick. If the order is less than the recommended minimum for that patient, then it's not going to be effective. If it's not effective, we're not helping the patient, right? If the order is greater than our maximum recommended, then it's too much. You can overdose that patient. Okay? So, in this case here, yes, the order is safe because it didn't exceed the maximum and it didn't fall below the minimum. So it's going to be helpful. There's one more thing I wanted to go over, just in case. We are starting the BSA section. So I wanted to go over how to use the basic calculator that you're approved to use during this class. So say that we have a patient that is 5'11" that weighs 175 pounds. And we need to know what is their BSA. I will give you the formula on the exam. So I'm not looking to see if you memorize it, but I am looking to see if you know how to apply the information given to calculate. So if we're using inches to pounds, we're going to use this formula. All right. However, if you notice, I gave it to you in feet here. So we need to convert the 5 feet to inches, which we know is 60 inches. Just a little side note, for every 1 foot, it is 12 inches. So you can calculate that if you didn't realize that 5 inches or 5 feet is a total of 60 inches. So I'm going to take that 60 inches and add the 11 more inches to it. So that means that patient is 71 inches tall. So I'm going to use my calculator to calculate this. And I'm going to tell you in steps how to type it in the calculator. One, on these little basic calculators, you need to make sure and hit clear as many times before you start a problem, because it may carry over a number and it'll mess up. So first thing you're going to do in the calculator is you're going to take that 175 and you're going to say times 71. Go equal. When you hit the equal sign, that's all you do. Don't touch nothing else. So I get, my number I came up with is 12425. So while that number's still there, I'm going to press the divide button. And I'm going to type in 3131. All right. That's going to give me this long number. So I'm not going to touch anything just yet. All right. While that number is still sitting there, hit the square root button. And then I get this long decimal. Now the rounding rules state that you round to the nearest hundreds when you're solving for BSA. So the hundreds is the second decimal place. And I'm going to look behind it to determine if the number behind it is equal to or greater than 5. If it is, I'm going to add 1 to my hundreds. If it's not, I'm just dropping it off. And if you notice, and I'm going to use approximation because I'm rounding, it's not greater than or equal to 5. So I'm just dropping those digits off. And this, and don't forget, meter squared is your unit. This is my BSA. So if you follow these steps on what I just said on typing it in your calculator, you'll get the answer right. And also make sure that you clear every time you're done, clear it.